Bob Marley's doctor told him, "Cut off your toe, or you're going to die." Bob looked him dead in the eye and said a word that sealed his fate forever. That one decision would kill him 4 years later. But the why he refused will make you question everything you believe about faith and sacrifice. This is the story they've been trying to bury. Stay with me, because it will change everything you thought you knew about Bob Marley. Welcome to the Marley Files. On this channel, we'll tell the untold stories. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button right away, because what I'm about to tell you has been hidden for over 40 years. London, England, July 1977. Bob Marley's right thumb was throbbing with excruciating pain. He had ignored it for weeks, but when his nail turned black and the pain became unbearable, his manager forced him to see a doctor. Dr. William Bacon examined the finger under a bright light. His face turned pale. "Mr. Marley, this is not a sports injury. This is acral lentiginous melanoma, an extremely aggressive form of skin cancer." Bob looked at his finger. The dark spot under his fingernail, which he had thought was just a bruise, was actually a growing death sentence on his body. "What are we going to do?" Bob asked quietly. Dr. Bacon did not hesitate. "We're amputating it. We're going to take the finger and probably part of the foot right away. If we don't do it, this cancer will spread throughout your body. Mr. Marley, if you don't amputate it, you're going to die." The room fell silent. Bob's manager stepped forward. "Bob, you have to do this." "No." The single word froze everyone. "No?" Dr. Bacon repeated in astonishment. "Mr. Marley, I don't think you understand." "I understand perfectly," Bob interrupted. "I'm Rastafarian. My body is a temple. Jah gave me this body whole and complete. I can't cut off parts of what Jah created." Dr. Bacon leaned forward helplessly. "Mr. Marley, your faith is admirable, but it's your life. This cancer is going to kill you." "Then Jah will decide," Bob said simply. "Not you, not the cancer. Jah." The manager grabbed his arm. "Bob, think of your children. You have 11 children who need their fathers." Bob's eyes lit up. "My children need a father who stands by his principles more than they need a father who compromises his principles." What kind of message would I be sending if I preached faith and then, when tested, renounced it? Here, I want to ask you, would you die for your beliefs? Write your answer in the comments, because this is getting even more intense. Dr. Bacon tried again. "Many Rastafarians have undergone medical procedures." "My faith allows for the will of Jah," Bob interrupted him. "If Jah wants me to live, I will live. But I will not mutilate the body he gave me out of fear." The doctor fainted in defeat. "Then we can try radiation, chemotherapy. But without removing the source, the cancer will eventually spread. You are just delaying it." "Then we delay it," Bob said, "and trust Jah for the rest." Bob agreed to a compromise. Remove just the cancerous tissue and nail, but keep the toe intact. The surgery happened in July 1977. Bob went back on tour within weeks, performing like nothing happened. For 2 years, everything seemed fine. Bob was at the height of his fame, selling out stadiums, spreading his message to millions. But in September 1980, while jogging in Central Park, Bob collapsed. The cancer had returned, and it had spread everywhere: brain, lungs, liver, stomach. Bob was rushed to the hospital. Doctors were shocked he'd survived this long. They gave him months to live. But here's what will destroy you. Even facing certain death, Bob refused to regret his decision. When a journalist asked if he wished he'd amputated, Bob smiled weakly and said, "Me live me life the way Jah intended. No regrets, only gratitude." A man dying of preventable cancer with zero regrets. But wait, Bob had a secret, and this will blow your mind. In 1991, 10 years after Bob's death, his Jamaican doctor revealed something shocking. Bob had known about that dark spot for years before the London diagnosis. Bob first showed me that toe in 1974. Dr. Fraser admitted. I urged him to get it checked. He refused, said it was just a bruise. Bob had 3 years of warning, 3 years where the cancer was completely treatable, and he ignored it. But here's why, and this will haunt you. Bob Marley was terrified of doctors, not because of faith, that came later. The real reason went back to his childhood. When Bob was 10, his father Norval died in a Kingston hospital. Young Bob watched white doctors treat his father with cold indifference. He heard them speak about his father like he was already dead. Then his father died. From that moment, Bob associated doctors with death. When he became Rastafari, that religious framework gave him philosophical justification for childhood trauma. So when that spot appeared in 1974, Bob's brain said, if you go to a doctor, you'll die like your father. The irony, by not going, he guaranteed his death. Bob Marley didn't die because of faith. He died because of unresolved trauma disguised as faith. And here's what makes this heartbreaking. In Bob's final months, he traveled to Germany seeking alternative cancer treatments. The treatments were brutal. His hair fell out. His weight dropped to 80 pounds. His mother begged him to stop. Robert, come home. But Bob refused. I have to fight Mama. I have to show faith and medicine can work together. Wait, see what happened. The man who refused amputation for religious reasons was now trying Western medicine, but it was too late. On May 11th, 1981, Bob Marley died in Miami at just 36 years old. His final words to his son Ziggy, money can't buy life. A man who earned millions died because of one decision 4 years earlier based on fear dressed as faith. After Bob's death, the Rastafarian community debated his choice. Some praised him as a martyr. Others criticized him for essentially committing suicide when children needed him. The 12 tribes even issued a statement saying Rastafari doesn't prohibit life-saving treatment. Bob's interpretation was his own, not required by the faith. Bob Marley died for a principle that wasn't even mandatory. Let me ask, was Bob brave or foolish? A man of conviction or victim of trauma? Comment below because I want to hear your thoughts. Here's what I think. Bob was human, beautifully, tragically human. He turned childhood pain into revolutionary music, transformed suffering into a global message of love. But he couldn't escape his own wounds. He let fear masquerade as faith. Maybe that's the real lesson. Unresolved trauma will destroy you, even if you're a legend, even if your music changed the world. Now here's something that will wreck you. In 2019, Bob's daughter, Sedella, revealed she carries the same melanoma gene. She gets checked every 3 months. She's had suspicious moles removed immediately. I learned from my father's mistake, she said, crying. He taught me courage and faith, but he also taught me that loving yourself means taking care of the body you were given. I honor my father by living, not by dying for a principle that doesn't require death. I honor my father by living, one of the most powerful statements ever. Let me tell you one final thing almost nobody knows. In Bob's final days, barely conscious, his mother sat beside him reading Psalms. Bob suddenly opened his eyes, grabbed her hand, and whispered something only she heard. For 30 years, Sedella refused to reveal it. People speculated endlessly. In 2011, she finally shared Bob's last words to her. Bob whispered, Mama, was I right? In his final conscious moment, Bob wasn't thinking about music or legacy. He was asking if refusing amputation was wisdom or foolishness. Sedella squeezed his hand and whispered, You were right to live by your convictions, Robert, but you were wrong to die for them when your babies needed you. Bob closed his eyes and never spoke again. So let me ask you, was he right? Was Bob right to refuse amputation, to prioritize faith over life, to die at 36 when he could have lived to 80? Maybe there's no answer. Maybe Bob's death teaches us something different depending on our own journey. But here's what I know. Bob's music brought more love into the world than most generate in 10 lifetimes. His message still resonates 40 years later. His courage, whether misguided or not, inspired millions. Maybe Bob doesn't need to have been right. Maybe he just needed to be Bob Marley. Now I want to hear from you. Would you have amputated? Do you think Bob was brave or foolish? Have you chosen between beliefs and practicality? What would you have told Bob in that doctor's office? Share this with someone who needs this story. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Marley Files, the Untold Stories, and turn on notifications. Before you go, Bob once said, "Better to die fighting for freedom than be a prisoner all the days of your life." He lived that. He died that. Whether right or wrong, Bob Marley never lived as a prisoner. Not to fear, not to compromise, not to expectations. Maybe that's real immortality. Not living forever, but living so fully that 36 years matter more than most people's 80. Rest in power, Bob Marley. Your music lives, your message lives, and your story, the real, complicated, tragic, beautiful story, finally lives too. I'm your host at Marley Files, the Untold Stories. Until next time, remember, the truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always worth telling. One love, peace.